we are live on Facebook and recording now.
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna just give it 1 minute here just to see if any other counselors chime in.
And we even progress. We can't even oh, we do have 3. My bad.
Yeah, we can go.
Just making sure.
Still under operational control, I can see.
There we go. Now it just wasn't enough people. Now I see everybody's smiling faces. Okay.
Oh, did I make enough people? All right.
Yeah, we're good.
There.
Nice.
Okay, so I was waiting on at least 1 or 2 of you, so I'm gonna go ahead and call this public hearing to order. Wednesday, December 16th. The time is 6:16. The topic is street vacation, part of South 2nd Street right of way, Zender, and I'm going to turn it over to our associate planter, Jenny Dimshow.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yep.
So tonight we are looking at a partial street vacation of the South 2nd Street right of way. Just to give you some context, this is the dead end of South 2nd Street. Nob Hill Nature Park is just to the west, and the city-owned former veneer mill is down below. The applicant tonight for the street vacation owns this parcel here, and then this kind of triangular parcel across the area that is the topic of discussion tonight. Like all street vacations, they have to get 2/3 consent of the affected area. And since the city was the property owner of a large portion of the affected area, they came before council, asked for that consent at the October 7th meeting, and the mayor at that time was authorized to sign off as the city as a property owner. So they received just under 75% of affected properties giving consent. So the purpose that they stated in their petition for the vacation is to have contiguous control over the main sort of double lot and then this triangular portion. So the triangular portion was a former street vacation from 1959. And you'll see later and on future maps why it was likely vacated. It's a significant steep slope. And so when they looked at it in the 50s or early 60s, they probably just said, well, we have no need. We're not going to build a road there. Let's vacate it. And so the applicant is desiring a full contiguous parcel so that they don't have a section of a parcel across what is public right of way. Okay. So the applicant has received land use approval for a number of applications at this point. Their plan is to build 2 attached single-family dwellings on that almost double lot that we were just looking at. And they're proposing an access easement along the north side of the northerly lot, which turns the corner and then accesses the garage in the back of the other lot to the south. So here's South 2nd. This is their proposed access easement. And I'm saying all of this, you're not approving the proposal tonight, but this is the planned development scheme of those lots. And they've received preliminary approval for the lot line adjustment that moves the boundary between the 2 lots. And they also received approval for 2 separate variances. One was for this access easement, and then one was for a setback variance. So those are the land use approvals they've received. They haven't recorded the lot line adjustment yet, but it's received preliminary approval. And just for more context, this is from the other angle. So you've got the South 2nd Street right of way here. This kind of purple color is what they're proposing to vacate tonight. And then this, where my cursor is where the access easement is proposed. And so these are the two different dwellings. Just some context. This is the 2D site plan. It's small and busy. I don't expect you to decipher it, but it just helps. Here's the 2nd Street right of way. Here's where they propose their access easement, rounds the corner, and here's their driveway in the back. And then here's the southerly properties garage. Here's the northerly property garage. So this is the development scheme. And notice they do not need this street vacation in order to develop these lots as presented. So the street vacation is not necessary for them to develop the lots as they wish to. I think that's it for that slide. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in a little bit here since it's pretty small. Okay, so there's a couple things I want to note on this utilities and topography map. So like all proposed street vacations, we ask utility companies if they have any issues, and we also ask, Public Works. And City Engineering requested a public utility easement along the 15 feet of the northerly lot. And this is because we don't know exactly where that water line terminates. Our GIS show it terminating just barely on the proposed street vacation, but we don't know exactly. And we don't know exactly the alignment of the sewer line either. So just to capture everything, they proposed, if we granted this, which, based on staff's recommendation, you'll see later, may not even matter. But if we were to grant it, they asked for 15 feet of a public utility easement right where I've got my cursor. The only other utility that commented was Comcast, and they had no issues. So I also wanted to point out on here the topography. So the brown lines represent, I believe they're 2 feet topo, but that kind of dense area is where the cliff starts to get incredibly steep on the edge. And I just want to point out while we have this open, this area right here is really the only usable portion of the right-of-way that isn't just a steep cliff. And so when we talk about staff's recommendation, remember that the northerly portion is kind of where the right-of-way is actually usable. So streets, we always talk about minimum width requirements when we talk about street vacations. South 2nd Street is a local classified street. Our normal street right-of-way width is 50 feet. In this case, we have even less than that we're starting with. We've got a 40-foot right-of-way at the north end that tapers down to 0. So we've got a really unique, abnormal circumstance to begin with. And so looking at right-of-way width is just kind of questionable whether you would hold this to that same standard. It's a dead end. The topography is steep. We're not going to build a road through there. So right-of-way width, not a huge deal. What we originally were thinking about when Jacob and I were talking about the street vacation is access to this southerly lot would be only through that proposed access easement if we were to grant the full street vacation as requested. So in other words, if this person wanted to park in the public right-of-way and walk to their front door, they couldn't. They would be trespassing on the northerly lot's property. And that's because if this is vacated, this section goes to them and this little tiny triangle goes to them. And so if they parked in the right-of-way and just wanted to walk to the front door, they couldn't. They'd have to walk all the way in the back and around to the garage. So that was the first thing is, we would be burdening this southern property, a future property owner, with the inability to just walk fully around their property. And so the discussion that we had with the Planning Commission originally, and let me change the view here. Oh, that's the wrong one. So this is what we discussed as the city staff recommendation for what right-of-way to vacate and what not to. I'll zoom in a little bit. It's kind of hard to read. So we recommend retaining 15 feet of right-of-way just to solve that issue of this southerly lot being able to access their property from the front. There was a long discussion, and ultimately that's what the Planning Commission recommended too, was this proposal here. However, they brought up the fact that public views are a public interest. And so we know views of the river are always going to be something that the citizens value. And so this area is all usable right of way currently and is less than our standard. And so when Jacob and I thought more about it, ultimately we came up with this recommendation for tonight. Good. Gosh, I'm having issues going to the next page. So what we're recommending tonight is to just vacate the portion abutting lot 22, the southerly lot. This solves the issue of the utility lines. This solves the issue of needing to have access for lot 22 from the front. It's also just greater fire access. We talked to the interim fire marshal way back when, and they didn't have huge concerns, but they said they would revisit it at the time of development. And so when we get those building permits, sprinkling could be required, but certainly maintaining what right of way is left is better for fire access. It also, we don't know what's going to happen down below on the waterfront redevelopment site. And we could want to utilize this right of way for a viewing platform. We just don't know. And, right of way vacations are permanent and we don't know what's to come. So, in being careful and not wanting to harm the city's futures interest in this land, this is our final recommendation. Just grant this little triangle, but keep the remainder of the usable right of way. So that's kind of the rundown of the staff report. Are there questions?
Jenny, if you don't give the variance on that last little triangle, the people still have the ability to get to that piece of property, correct?
Yeah, because it's public now. So
Okay.
this,
And-
they have
and
access.
so-
Yeah.
As far as use of that property, it doesn't change the use. The only thing the city loses a few square feet of taxable ground, correct? You can't build on that little triangle. Or can you?
This little triangle that they want to
Right.
vacate? No, and the purpose of vacating it from their perspective is to have a bigger front yard and to have contiguous access to this little piece across the way. Because then this would all be one parcel as opposed to two separate parcels.
Oh, the larger triangle that is privately owned, the eastern side, which of the two lots would that go to? Or owns it right now?
They own it now. So the dividing
When you say
line,
they, we have one owner having basically two lots in the triangle, correct?
yes, exactly.
Okay.
And that triangle on the side is divided in half. The northern half goes to lot 21, the northern lot, and then the southern half goes to lot 22.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a really unique circumstance.
So the smaller northerly lot cannot be, or it would be access to the public right of way.
Yeah, both would still have adjacent right of way next to them. So this
Right.
lot would have this portion that's public, and this lot has all of this frontage that would still be
Right.
public.
But I'm talking about the piece that's sloping down the, or going down that cliff, the northern triangle.
This one.
Yeah, could anything be built there other than stairway?
No, I mean, I'm not going to say no, but it's very, very steep.
I know
That
it's
section
steep.
is
I'm just,
yeah.
I'm wondering about legal square footage to build on. And I'm gonna do something weird that I need a steep.
No, this does
slope
not
for.
meet, this does
And
not
I'm an
meet any
architectural crazy.
minimum lot size. It's not a separate buildable lot. It's part of this northern lot.
But, so I can't put a structure on that. Okay, thank you.
So Jen, would the public lose anything with the small triangle? Would any of our citizens lose anything with that? And what again would the builder uh, what would that work? How would that work for him or her?
Yeah, I mean, the builder would just gain control over, you know, what happens on that little parcel. So the trees would be up, they could cut the trees. They wouldn't be subject to public protection. Arguably, that's a public benefit. But this is the steepest part of the slope. And so you're not going to be walking out here. You're not going to be building anything for the public here. You're not going to be putting a trail through here. It's just too steep.
What about a deck?
Attached to the house.
I'm
That-
not certain. I just said, what about if they own that property, could they not put a deck on that area?
If they're meeting setback requirements, sure. Yeah, if it's attached to the house and it's considered a structure, they'd have to still comply with setbacks.
Okay, that little triangle, can I walk on it to go from the public right of way into their house? Or is it too steep the way it stands?
You'd have to be a goat to walk
Okay.
on it.
So it's not convenient to enter that property as it stands right now from a physical point of view.
No, and I was gonna pull up, there's a picture in the staff report that I was gonna pull up just to kind of give some context here. So the portion that we're recommending to vacate is down below here. It's off of the edge here. So there's kind of a fence line right here. All of this would remain public right of way, this whole flat portion. And this shed is actually really good context. So remember the location of that shed, and I'll show you the map again, and you can see where it's at on the 2D map. So they would gain some control over these trees, Doug, these ones that you see here.
Okay.
And then I'll show you again, just that map that's got the structure on it. So that little shed structure is this. And you saw how steep it was on this side of the shed. I mean, there's really
Right.
not usable land here. So this area, you know, both Jacob and I do not feel heartburn if we grant this little triangle, but this full area will still be public.
Thank
If
you
you go-
for, thank you for that explanation. I appreciate it.
Okay,
Yeah.
now the piece of property that's privately owned on the cliff, could that be bought by the city or depending on what the owner wants? Or is there some legal reason that it can't be bought by the city?
It would
Yeah.
probably be done by lot line adjustment. So potentially we could purchase it from them.
And the thought I had, is this would be a great place for a stairway from the observation deck down to the veneer property as compared to building a building or a restaurant or something exotic there.
Yeah, I mean, when we were up here, it did seem like a great spot for an overlook or a viewing platform of some kind, kind of like the Columbia Boulevard, the dead end, how the corridor master plan recommended a viewing platform there. And that's partly why, you know, if we vacate it, we can never have it back.
Right.
So maintaining this public right of way was ultimately what we decided to recommend. I'll pull up that again. Any other questions?
No, it was a goofy parcel in the first place. Holy cow.
Yeah, and for a long time, it was under the same ownership as this property behind it.
That triangle is just odd that they were rented that long time ago. I get why. I mean, it's cliff.
It's cliff, yeah. And if we were to review that today, we probably wouldn't have granted it because of what the plans we have. I mean, it used to be industrial. Why would they care about it back then? But now that we want mixed use and have plans for that.
Did the planning commission discuss any kind of transportation issues in there? In other words, if you drive a car to that dead end, is there any kind of vulnerabilities of getting that car doing a 180 and turned around and going out did they talk about any of those kinds of things?
Their main focus was on protecting public views. And it may just have been that they didn't talk about it. I can tell you, having visited the site 4 times for this application and others, I had to do a 4-point turn to get out. It's challenging. I mean, you've got a dead end site that with topography challenges. So it's just challenging.
It sounds to me like if there ever was a viewing platform there, it would fit into our trails and pathways kind of program that we have or that we're starting to build on. And so I see some merit with that rather than approaching it with the automobiles, which the residents would, but I doubt if any visitors would come that way. And I would propose looking at that as possibly a future trail site and a viewing platform for our trails committee. I'm excited about it. I'm glad that it's brought up and we're talking about it.
Jenny, following Doug's comments about a trail, what if I wanted to walk, we'll say, catty corner down that cliff, similar to above the marina, that staircase there, which is dug into the cliff. Does it match that type of trail?
I'd say it's even steeper.
Yeah, but
Mhm.
I'm gonna cut in sideways, so I have a long trail cut into the side of this cliff going down towards Nob Hill.
Mr. Topaz, I think we better go with an elevator.
Well, I agree, but I'm just looking at, I mean, as a viewpoint or coming down a trail like that,
Yeah.
looking across the river, that's gotta be a fabulous sight. As I'm
It is.
walking
It
down-
is beautiful. And to be fair, I mean, there is a staircase at Tualatin, which is 1 block north. So there's a staircase existing just
Well,
up,
now that
just up the way.
More staircases are better for trails
Sure.
and stuff like that.
Sure. Yeah. Connectivity. I agree. Yep.
You've got a small staircase down a Nob Hill, but you don't count that as the only way to get there. Okay, thank you.
Yep. Any other questions? Okay. Do we have the applicant here? Is there anybody? Nope.
Does not appear so. No, I just see staff.
Okay. Well, we do have Howard. So if Howard wants to speak in testimony, Howard, did you want to speak on this?
Yeah, just a hair. I just concerned about if they would get control of trees there, because I know in the city, so many people, when they build something, they believe all the trees in front of their place have to be taken out for maximum view. And that is really, when you look at that section of the bluff, you go back, people just keep cutting more downriver from there. And that is really where a lot of the oak trees for that end of the city down there begin. And so I'm just concerned about giving up control of the beautiful oak trees that are growing in that area. We've been losing so many trees in this big, huge trees lately that I'm kind of just concerned about giving up control of the oak trees in that area. So that's my only concern. So,
Okay. Thanks, Howard.
okay, that's all.
Is there anything in our code with the building inspector or something? Not speaking to specific types of vegetation, but anytime you're around a bluff or a drop off like that, you worry about stability, because all of a sudden it looks all well and good. I look at all of, after they have forest fires, it's like the fire's one destruction, but once the trees are gone, all of a sudden you lose the whole hillside. So is there stuff in our code that protects things like that?
Yeah, so when a lot is more than 15% in grade, they have to get a sensitive lands permit. And that's the land use permit. But also Mike, the building official, has full authority to require a geotechnical report that just determines whether or not the land is buildable and suitable for the type of development. But for just, that's triggered at development. So I think your question was more about just the existence of cliffs. So
Well, to Howard's, just to follow up on about Howard and the trees, that it's like not everybody, I know from other developments, not Nob Hill, when people are like, how can they do this? Well, it's their property. And it's like, a common tree is a common tree, but sometimes a common tree is vital in an uncommon location. So like on a bluff or a cliffside, you want to be extra careful about vegetation, even though it's an ordinary tree or not big enough tree to trigger, because I know we have trees of a certain size, but sometimes any vegetation on a hillside is important. That's all I meant.
I see.
Just
Jamie,
on
I'm
the-
piggybacking
just
on
on the-
Howard.
On the flip side of, just on the flip side of that, and it's no argument, but it's just an observation that is, I know, solid basalt. And there's the overburden on the basalt is the issue that we're probably talking about, and how much overburden is on that basalt is the key issue. Well, there's enough to support some oak trees or whatever kinds of trees those were. So yeah, I think Jen is absolutely correct. First time that I looked at the property that I'm on, first thing that I did was get a geotech here to give a full report on if this was buildable or not, and if it was safe to be on. So I got, after that report, it was, it gave me an insurance of, yeah, I'm on solid basalt. It's so there's the that's not an argument, Jenny, not at all. It's just an observation. So, but I agree with Jenny about a geotech report on anything that has any kind of steep grade to it.
Just gotta
Now,
be
you-
safe. That's all.
You talked about 15%. Is the square footage of that triangle into that property, that comes up for close to 15%, doesn't it? Or do you have
So-
a number?
So they're building on this portion. They're not proposing building on that really steep slope.
That's, if you throw the whole thing together, it's minor. If you have two different lots later on down the road, is it more than 15% of that southerly lot?
The slopes on this triangle are definitely more than 15%. The slopes on the main portion of the lot where they're proposing development are relatively flat.
Yeah, but as I say, if I combine that whole thing now as one lot, the triangle plus that 15% starts talking. Because I've got one lot with a triangular shape that's got a big slope on it, which is more than 15% of the total lot.
Yeah, we're not averaging the slopes.
Yeah, I know. That was the question. I mean, as I say.
We
right
look at the
now it's
building
two pieces of
footprint and
property.
then look at that slope. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Good point.
Any other questions or commentary from I know Keith's just showing up. Okay.
No, it was just a goofy layout in the first place, and I think I like your guys' recommendation. Just we'll deliberate about it later, but yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Any other? Did we do in favor of, opposed, all that, Jenny?
Yeah, I think the only public here is Howard and he spoke. So I think we're okay to just wait.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and close the public hearing then, and then we'll deliberate later. So we'll call this public hearing closed.